Good morning, all.
Please,
Please, please mute your mic, please, because I need to talk. Thank you. Thank you for all. Good morning, hello, please mute your mic. Thank you. Okay. Today we will be talking about Cisco Nexus and data center networking. Last week,
Maybe you can mute their mic because you have got the control.
I already did that, but actually he's unmuting. Anyways, okay, thank you. I just muted him now. Okay, thanks for all for joining this wonderful meeting on this Sunday. And today we will be talking about the Cisco Nexus and data center networking. And last week we seen some other chapters as well, like Cisco DevNet. I was talking about that. That is a new certification has come up in the market. That is for DevOps and like programmability and automation stuff and other things, DevOps like that. So today we will be speaking about that Cisco Nexus and data center networking. So this particular technology has come up in the market last 7-8 years back, because we've been working with the Cisco Nexus 3000 models and 5000 models, and the 7000, now the 9000 has come up. So like many other models has come up, because it is like a revolution which has been happened on the data center networking, which has been made by Cisco. And moreover, this all the switches, the Cisco Nexus switches are not natively running on the Cisco IOS. They are running on the Linux based OS. Plus Cisco has made some sort of changes and modifications to the Linux platform. It's an open source platform. They acquired it, and they just developed something, the new platform for the Cisco Nexus. So interaction with the many other vendor switches, it's not a problem at all. And as usual, we can even run the natively the protocol related things and all, which is only available for the Cisco platform. Also, we can run, and as well as we can run it for the open source platforms of the network as well. Means it can talk to the Arista data center networks, Juniper data center networks, like that. Many other data center networks are there, network devices are there. So all the devices can talk to each other by the Cisco Nexus. Cisco Nexus is very famous in the every other data centers, but price differences are there. Like when you compare it with an Arista or like that, it's a bit higher price. That is not a problem. If you are looking for a performance and the speed and the availability and other things, we can go for the Nexus platform. And the Nexus platform, mostly like most of the labs, what I say that around 40% of the labs which we will not be able to see it, or we cannot emulate it or simulate it in a local environment. Because of that, it's been sealed. It has not been so open to that, and many of the operating systems which we are having, like either Windows or Linux or something, which will not be able to emulate it. Many of the practicals which we cannot do. Some other things are like Fabric, Extend, and virtual device contexts, like some other things which we will not be able to do that, and many other things are there, like we will be seeing in the coming up slides. So Nexus is been there for the market for last 10 years, I can just say that, and it is ruling the market now, because data center has been come up so very heavily. Last 5-6 years, we've seen the lot of market has been generated, jobs has been generated in the data center networking, and everybody is moving towards the data centers nowadays. Means earlier we've been using the private data centers and all. Nowadays everyone is moving to the public cloud as such. Cloud is nothing but a data center only. AWS is maintaining their own cloud. Microsoft Azure is there maintaining their own cloud. Everything is a data center only. Data centers are available all over the world. So in every other data center, you will be able to see that Cisco switches, Arista switches, like data center switches, you'll be able to see that. And this has got a very good opportunity for the people who have trained themselves in a Nexus. That is a lot of job openings are there, because data center is now quite hot in the market. Number one jobs you just see, because data center has got a new track itself for the CCIE level certifications. Today I will be talking about that. There is an introduction about the Nexus and data centers and networking, and some of the terminologies which are used in the Cisco Nexus platform. And as usual, at the end of the meeting, I'll be showing you a little bit of lab, which is possible on the GNS3. We will be able to see that one. I'll be configuring some BGP or OSPF on this one. That we can always do that. But switches related, like when you try to create the VTPs, means the virtual trunking protocols, and you would like to create the virtual device context, that is the VDCs, and you are trying to create the virtual port channels, and limited access only it is possible when we try to simulate those things. So better what we need to do, if you like to go for an examination or if you wanted to attend the interviews for the data center networking and other things, better you can just go for the rack rentals which are available worldwide. Per hour basis they will be charging you, and there are some many reductions are happening nowadays because of the corona. A lot of business has been down, so they are giving in a very throwaway prices and all. We can just go ahead and train ourselves, because we will not be able to do everything on even in the rack rental also, because rack rentals are like maybe at least like if you like to practice yourself on a 6 or 7,000, at least a week is required for you. Week in the sense at least 40-50 hours you just need to work on that 7,000, so you will understand the infrastructure of it. What are the labs or scenarios are there? How do you create the VPCs, VDCs, and fabric extenders, and virtual device contexts, like, and how to activate the protocols on this. How do you create the users and giving some different level of rights for the people to work on, like creating the port channels for that. OTV, we just need to configure the OTV, like overlay transport network, something. There is a new context, there is a new concept has been the VXLAN, virtually extendable LAN, like from one data center to the another data center. If they are separated geographically, we can even extend the same VLAN can be created on the other side. Means I can just use the same subnet over here. The same subnet can be extended to the next level, next geographic location also. That is a VXLAN. We will be seeing in the coming up slides. And before that, I would like to give an introduction about this. Cisco Nexus and data center networking has got some CCNA level certification is also available, and the CCNP level certification is available. CCIE level certification is available. We'll be showing you those things on end of the meeting. First, we will be talking about that why we require a data center. Like how the data center network has been built by the Cisco Nexus platform. How will we configure it, and how will we maintain that? How will we do the additions and removals? And how does it differentiate between the normal switches? Normal switches in the sense, Cisco switches we've been working on, like there is an L2 switches, normally we call it as L3 switches, we'll call it as layer 2 switches and layer 3 switches. Layer 2 switches which are based on the MAC address based. Layer 3 switches are based on working based on the layer 2 as well as the MAC address as well as the IP addresses on this. Then we will be doing the interface VLANs, and we'll be creating the inter-VLAN routing on that. Then we'll be doing a trunking and 8.1q protocols, ISL protocols. Like many other things, normal Cisco switches, whatever the practical switch we've been doing on this, we'll be able to do this and all. But additionally, for the data center, there is a new technology has been introduced on this. So Nexus is capable of doing all these things. Whatever we are doing on the Cisco Nexus switches, we will not be able to perform every other operations on the normal iOS switches. iOS switches in the sense, it comes up with the, like the version 15 and on iOS currently version 15 is running on that. So many of the functions which doesn't work out with the normal iOS based switches, like they are called as a legacy catalyst based switches and all. So that is a bigger difference on this one, because they don't understand what is a VLAN, what is a VXLAN, and what is the VPCs, and what is the fabric extenders and other things and all. Model number itself is a completely different one. The Cisco Nexus has got a series of platforms which are developed by the Cisco with the help of Linux platforms, Linux OS, the kernel, they acquired it and they started building their own, like some modifications they've done on that and they've done that. But when you talk about the iOS, means it is a completely a proprietary. We will not be able to get the internal details of that iOS, how does it work, how to crack it and all these things. It's not possible. But in the Cisco Nexus switches, we can able to do a lot of programming stuff as well. We can do the ACI, application centric, something like infrastructure, which we can do on that. And we can monitor that, and we can do the adaptability and programmability is possible, automation is possible on this. We can even manage this entire Cisco network Nexus architecture by configuring the Nexus platform can be done with the Ansible and Python and other things. Does anyone saying? I don't know. What is that? Somebody called Nexus is pinging. His name is Nexus. Huh? Okay. Can't you hear Nexus? I don't know the name of the person. Can't you hear my voice? My voice. Hey, Nexus. What about other people? They can listen to me. Could you please confirm, anyone? Please unmute your mic and please say voice okay. Asgara said that voice is okay. What happened to the person who pinged now? His name is Nexus. He made it like. Okay, anyway, I will continue that because maybe like if you are having experiencing any issues on your headphones or something, please try to listen it with your microphone. Please listen it with your speaker itself on your mobiles, or in the PC speaker. Please listen to that. Some of the Bluetooth speakers or Bluetooth, like the headsets will not be working properly with, the Zoom sometimes, like sometimes only. It is not every time. Sometimes it may not work properly. So better you can directly listen to my video on audio as well as in your PC speaker as well as in mobile speaker. Now don't use any kind of headphones or Bluetooth or something like that. Please don't do that. Okay, anyway, I will continue that. Okay, Cisco Nexus differences between the normal iOS switches means like they will be having some special functionality, which has been an added advantage for the people to work on. Didn't get the voice. Nexus again is saying, everyone else is listening to me. There is no problem at all. Hey, Nexus. Please, maybe you can rejoin again. That is possible. Nexus, let me say, please rejoin to the meeting. Rejoin to the meeting. That will help. Try that now. Please, hey Nexus, please rejoin the meeting. Okay. Anyway, I will rejoin the meeting. We will continue with that. So Nexus switches and the normal iOS switches, the difference is that Nexus switches are built for data center networking and as well as for the normal things also. But the normal switches are built only for the normal traditional network, which can only do the L2 and L3 TCAM mapping, MAC address table forwardings, and spanning trees, like some multicast things, which there is a normal stuff which we normally do with all the switches available in the world. But the Nexus switches are built for only for the data center networks. In the data center networks, in the sense, some special functionalities are has been expected. Like those functionalities are only been done by the Cisco switches, Cisco Nexus switches. So we should be, like learning ourselves towards the Cisco Nexus technologies, and we have to start configuring all these things. Better we can do it, build it with GNS3 or EVE-NG. That is, two platforms are available for the simulation stuff. In this simulation stuff, we can do many of the labs. It is possible, but I will not be saying that every other lab is possible, because some things doesn't work with the simulation stuff as such. So better we will be going for a rack rental to do those labs only. Maybe like 1 or 2 days, if you can hire that rack rentals, that will help you in preparing for your exams as well as the interviews, and to understand the technologies as well for your project implementations and all. So we cannot do the R&D in the projects and all. It is in the production, it is not possible. So better we will be doing the rack rental and we'll be doing that. So, but I will try to show you some of the things which are working on GNS3 as well as in EVE-NG. We will see those practicals at the end of this session. Okay. So let me go back to the slides. One by one slides, we will be seeing it now. So this is the topic which we are going to talk today. So we will see what is the data center. As its simplest, data center is a physical facility that organizations use to house their critical applications and data. Data center's design is based on the network of computing and storage resources that enable the delivery of shared applications and data. The key components of a data center design includes routers, switches, firewalls, storage systems, servers, and application delivery controllers. So how many things which we can do it in the data center? You just see that. The key components of the design include routers, switches, firewalls, storage systems, servers, and application delivery controllers. So these are all the things need to get interconnected. Maybe like this is one of the data center, this is another data center. They are geographically separated on this. So we require the Nexus switches, and as well as the ISP level connectivity and other things are required for us. So we will be seeing one by one on this. And what are the types of data centers are there? Enterprise data centers, managed services data centers, co-location data centers, cloud data centers. We will be seeing one by one what is the specialty behind this and what all the services can be run on this each and every data centers on this, and how do we configure that, what all the devices are used for to make this data center to work, and those things we'll be seeing in the next coming up slides. What defines a modern data center? Modern data centers are very different from they were just a short time ago. Means maybe like around 3-4 years before. Infrastructure has shifted from traditional on-premises physical servers to virtual network that is support applications and workloads across pools of physical infrastructure into a multi-cloud environment. Multi-cloud environment in the sense we are talking about here, that is a AWS we are talking about, Azure we will talk about that, right? And as well as we'll be talking about the GCP, that is a Google Cloud. That is a multi-cloud environment. We are having the open clouds also, it is possible, and OpenStack is there. So these are all possible. That is a modern data center we can call. In this era, data exists and it is connected across the multiple data centers, the edge, public and private clouds. Public clouds are AWS and other things and all. Private clouds, VMware we can say, OpenStack we can say that, OpenShift something like it comes out. Those are all we can just say that like a private clouds. The data center must be able to communicate across these multiple sites, both on premises and in the cloud. Even the public cloud is a collection of data centers. When applications are hosted in the cloud, they are using the data center resources from the cloud provider. This is the important part. So multiple data centers connectivity, multiple cloud connectivity, and all are possible through the modern data centers on this. Modern data centers in the sense it is not the traditional one. There is a lot of changes has been done on that. That is a data center which you are going to see. Why are the data centers are important to the business? Why are the data centers are important to the business? In the world of enterprise IT, data centers are designed to support business applications and activities that include email and file sharing, productivity applications, customer relationship management, enterprise resource planning and database, big data, artificial intelligence and machine learning. This is very important. Virtual desktops, communication and collaboration services. So these are all the business applications and activities which are included in the data centers. Through that, that's why they are important to the business running. Day-to-day business is continuously running because of that. We are all connected to the data centers only. So this Zoom meeting is also being run from one of the data center only. Zoom has been hosted on the cloud and it has been on the web. It is available. Everyone is joined from different locations. And I'm talking from the Bangalore side. So people are getting it because of the cloud data centers have been working so fine. What are the core components of a data center? Data center design includes routers, switches, firewalls, storage systems, servers and application delivery controllers, because these components store and manage business critical data and applications. Data center security is critical in data center design. Together, they provide this much: network infrastructure, storage infrastructure, computing resources. Network infrastructure in the sense this connects the servers like a physical as well as a virtualized, data center services, storage, external connectivity to the end user locations. Storage infrastructure, data is the fuel for the modern data center. Storage systems are used to hold this valuable commodity. Computing resources, applications are engines of a data center. These servers provide processing, memory, local storage, and network connectivity. These are all like we normally call it as an EC2 service in the AWS. Our network servers will be calling it in the GCP as well as the AWS, in the Microsoft Azure, like that. So this is the network infrastructure. What are the core components? Network infrastructure is a core component. Storage infrastructure is another one. Computing resources are the another one. So a data center which will be comprising of all these things has been clouded and it has been kept available for all the people's 24/7 connectivity, so that our social network platform will be running on every other application which is running on Google Web. We are running on that. Everything is running from the complex, like connected data centers only. How do data centers are operating? Data center services are typically deployed to protect the performance and integrity of the core data center components, network security appliances, application delivery assurance. These include firewall and intrusion detection, as well as protection to safeguard the data center. Application delivery assurance. To maintain the application performance, these mechanisms provide application resiliency and availability via automatic failover through the load balancing. So when you are thinking about the data center in the sense, you just need to have a proper understanding of the network first. In the network, normally we will be connecting the switches and routers. The routers are used for the remote access connectivity, remote site connections and WAN connections and all. Now the switches will be using it for the local area network. That is a VLAN creations, inter-VLAN routings, placing the servers in a different subnets on this, and connecting them all together to the different geographical locations. These are all the basic understandings once you have. Then you will be coming to the data center network. So data center network is nothing new, but so many premises networks are has been comprised and made it like a one data center. That is called as a data center. What is in a data center facility? Data center components require significant infrastructure to support centers, hardware and software. These include power subsystems, uninterruptible power supplies, ventilation, cooling systems, fire suppression, backup generators, connections to the external networks. Like we normally do for our, our on-premises networks also we will be doing that. But when it is goes to the data center, in the sense multiple customers will be hosting their servers, multiple customers will be connecting to the different part of the world, and multiple ISPs will be connecting together to the outside ISPs as well. Means outside in the sense outside world ISP connections and all. So it's a multi-vendor environment as well as a multi-customer environment. So we just need to take care of these things so regularly, like UPS connections, power connections, firefighting equipments, keeping it, and backup generators. We just need to have it, and the connection to the external network need to be maintained properly through the ISPs and all. So that is a data center facility which we'll be talking about. We've seen what is a data center, and we've seen what are the core components which are there in the data centers, and we've seen what is the data center can offer to the end user, and we've seen what are the facilities should be available for the data center to work and operate without any failure or something like that. So we'll see something more. Types of data centers: enterprise data center, managed services data centers, co-location data centers, cloud data centers. These are all the major 4 type of data centers which we'll talk. So enterprise data centers are built, owned and operated by the companies and are optimized for their end users. Most often they are housed as a corporate campus. It's like you can just say this is the one more on-prem. It's like an one more on-premises, but on-premises they call it as a data centers, but it will be used only for the enterprise level. That is called as an enterprise data center. Next one is managed services data centers. These data centers are managed by the third party managed service provider on behalf of the company. The company leases the equipment and infrastructure instead of buying it. This is the most used way that all the data centers are currently worked on, because when you go to the public cloud like AWS, Microsoft Azure or Google Cloud or a CenturyLink Cloud, they will be providing the equipments to you. They will be providing the every other facilities for you. What we will be doing, that pay as you go model, we will be using that. So per hour usage we will be using that. Then accordingly we will be paying it to them. Like we are not going to create any assets, and we will not be paying any money to those. We are not going to buy any kind of the equipments or something. As and when required, we will build the network, we'll make the production running. Once this project has been over, we'll just dismantle it and we'll give it back to the third party. That is called as a managed services data centers. Third one, co-location data centers. In co-location, it's called as a colo data centers. Company rent space within the data center owned by others and located off company premises. This co-location data center hosts the infrastructure, building, cooling, bandwidth, security, and etc. While the company provides and manages the components, including servers, storages, and firewalls. It depends on the services which you are going to have it like that. Co-location. Previously, when it is a critical service or like that, what we do, we will be keeping it in the data centers only, because data center are maintained properly because of the third party Customers are keeping their own servers and everything. So the maintenance will be like up to the mark, 100% availability, 100% uptime they will be giving it. So what do we do normally? We will be keeping the mail servers, web servers and all in the co-located data centers. And we will be running in our own network like non-critical service and all we will be running into non-premises. So the next one is a cloud data centers. Here our AWS and other things are coming. In this off-premise form of the data center, data and applications are hosted as a cloud services providers such as AWS, Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud. Yeah, I can just say Google Cloud, everything. So there are 4 data centers basically. One is an enterprise data center. Second one is a managed services data center. Third one is a co-location data center. Fourth one is a cloud data centers. So these are all we just need to understand. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Why choose Cisco data center switches? Okay, this is they're talking about their own switches and all. But I am working on like mostly on Arista data center switches also, Juniper switches also, some Extreme switches also been used in sometimes. But Cisco, because we are talking about a Cisco Nexus devices, so we will see this also. Industry leading performance, infrastructure scalability, ease of programmability, industry leading in the sense like get deep visibility and security, lower TCO, total cost of ownership, and faster application performance with the cloud scale. Infrastructure scalability, virtualization, efficient power and cooling, high density, and the performance all support efficient data center growth. Ease of programmability, programmable and automation tools, day-to-day like that, day-to-day activities and other things. So this is about that. And earlier, why we are choosing the Cisco data center switches. Now we will be seeing the models which are available under the Cisco company. Cisco, whatever it is producing, earlier it was a 5000. 5000 it's not been mentioned at all nowadays. It's, I guess it's been end of the sale or something like that, end of support or something. So 3000 series, Cisco 3000 series and Cisco 7000 series. Cisco 3000 series, 7000 series and 9000 series. There are 3 things which they are trying to promote it. 3000 series switches, low latency, high programmable, high density switches. They are excellent for general purpose deployments, high performance computing, high frequency trading, massively scalable data centers and cloud networks. What about 7000? Modular switches. These are all not modular. This is like a normal catalyst only it will look like. Maybe like a one module will be there. That is an on board like that. But here we can do module. We can insert many modules as well, like a rack rental, sorry, rack mounting like that it will go. So full NX OS features are available and open source programmable. Let me clear this. Open source programmable tools, software defined deployments, get density of 10, 40 and 100 gigabit Ethernet with application awareness, high programmability and performance analytics. This is like medium. This is a very lower end. This is a very high end, 9000 series switches. Get high performance, density and low latency, exceptional power efficiency. 9000 switches operate in Cisco NX OS software, which is ACI modes and a groundbreaking cloud scale ASIC technology. So what Cisco has done that they taken some plus points from the Linux platform and they build it with their own technology and they added their own things and they included whatever the data centers are required, what are the functions which we're looking for a switch, data center switch to perform. And they clubbed it together like their iOS as well as the Linux has been made as like a clubbed together and made a test so that we are getting a good performance on this. And the crashings are very lesser, not like the before. And the performance has also been increased. We can attain until the 100 gig Ethernet. That is between the ports and ports. Maximum what the server we are having the 10 gig port only we are connecting it nowadays. Okay, but in the data center and all we can have some fiber optic NICs are available which can give you 40 gig, 50 gig and all like that ports on this. So these are all the model numbers which are offered by the Cisco Nexus for the data centers. What are the features and benefits? When you're using the Cisco Nexus data center switches, Cisco Embedded Event Manager, Python scripts, touchless boot and configuration, Cisco Data Center Network Manager, that is called as CDCNM, XML management tools, advanced reboot features are included. Use Cisco Nexus Data Broker for visibility and monitoring. open programmability, scalability, and high performance, high availability and efficiency. So we can use the development deployment tools like a Puppet, Ansible, and so we are using the Ansible for automations nowadays, are built in. The next API, that is an application programming interface, offers a common programming approach across the switches. Python scripts you can run, Bash shell you can bring it up, Linux container support and customer applications, OpenStack and OpenFlow support for SDN. These are all available in the Nexus boxes. Get multi-tenant scalability with the VXLAN support. We will see what is a VXLAN. Cisco bidirectional support simplifies migration to 40 gig Ethernet, Algo Boost, and a warp mode. Cisco 3500 series switches to provide low latency rates in the industry. High availability and efficiency. Modular Cisco Nexus OS software supports a fault isolation. Switches are redundant, hot swappable power supplies and fan modules. Shared buffer space handles the micro bursts, regular data flow, and jitter for increased network efficiency. So these are all the features and benefits which we'll be getting on this. How does it getting that features and benefits we are getting it over there? Because there is an F3 ASIC has been inside, that is sitting inside the Cisco Nexus switches. Most comprehensive ASIC. ASIC means application specific integrated circuit, that everyone knows. Integrated circuit means normally we call it as an IC. Application specific integrated circuit. This is nothing but a proprietary, which we will not be able to see what is inside, what performance it is doing it. How do we troubleshoot it? It is not possible because it is a proprietary thing. So this most comprehensive ASIC for the data center, which does this classic L2, L3 switching, and the fabric path it is giving that multi-tenant features. FCOE, that is for a fiber channel over the Ethernet, and OTV, LISP, and MPLS. MPLS has also been supported. DCI and MPLS deployments. VXLAN it's supporting. So this F3 ASIC, which is making the things which are traditional as well as the advanced. This is a Nexus proprietary. This is like a Nexus functionality. This is normal switches functionality, which we were using for the catalyst switches. So F3 switches, F3 ASIC has got these all functionalities, making the Cisco switches available for us to, Nexus switches available for us to implement it in the data center network. Then hardware layer 2 forwarding process and a layer 3 forwarding process. Layer 2 forwarding is the traffic steering based on the destination MAC address that everyone knows that. MAC table lookup drives the layer 2 forwarding. Source MAC and destination MAC lookups performed for each frame based on VLAN and MAC and pairs. Source MAC lookup drives new learns and refreshes the aging timers. Destination MAC lookup dictates the outgoing switch ports. This is a layer 2 functional normally, and this is a layer 3 forwarding. Cisco 7000 decouples the control plane and data plane. This we need to understand that what is the data plane and what is the control plane. Control plane is that how the traffic has been moving between the ports, how the traffic has been moving between the data centers, and how the traffic has been moving within the switch, and what is the control plane, and how we are going to control it, the data movement, how we are going to control by the commands and the programmability and other things. So this is decoupling. Decoupling means it is removing the dependability of the control plane as well as the data plane. They made it as a two different planes. And forwarding tables built on control plane using routing protocols or static configurations. Here it is. All the protocols are supported. OSPF, EAGRP, ISIS, RIP, BGP for dynamic routing and other things. Tables downloaded to forwarding engine, hardware for data plane forwarding. 50 TCAM. TCAM has already been there. So we are using with the IP prefixes on this. Adjacency table contains the next hop information. These are all done by the layer 2 and the layer 3 forwarding. How does it been happening? And what is the difference between these Nexus switches and as well as the older traditional catalyst switches on this? Let us go to the next slide. So let us see the terminologies which are used in the data center networking. These terminologies we just need to understand. Once you are understanding this and you are doing the practicals, labs, scenarios on this each and every technology, which I can call it as, then you will be seeing that you are trained on Cisco Nexus, because this functionalities, this lab scenarios are required for you to implement it in the production environment. We will be creating a lot of port channels. That is called as a virtual port channels, VPC. And we will be creating virtual device context. Virtual device context is nothing but like that. We will be creating multiple switches within the single switch. It's like a logic switching which we are creating, like a domain which we will be creating on this. So there is a, these are all quite a bit complex things, because this is a new technology which has come up. Overlay transport virtualization, that is for end-to-end connectivity by not losing the VLAN content, means the VLAN can be maintained as it is between the geographical locations as well. Same can be done by the VXLAN also. According to your own requirement, either you will be going for a VXLAN connections or you will be doing the OTV connections. Virtual port channel we should be configuring. Fabric extender. Fabric extender is nothing but like dumb switches can be connected to the main switches. 7000 series and 9000 series are primary switches, we call it as intelligent. And the 3000 and the 5000 switches are like 2000 switches were also there. Those are users like like a dump. They will be getting downloading all the forwarding informations. The one which we see earlier like that. TCAM table, which port need to be get forwarded, where the packet need to move. Every other decision has been taken by the primary switch and it has been giving the directions to the the end switches. That is called as the fabric extender. It is called. So we will be seeing one by one in much in detailed way. One by one we will see. First we will see the virtual port channel. Virtual port channel allows the links that are physically connected to the two different Nexus 5000 series devices. Not only 5000, we can do it on 7000, we can do it on 9000 also, to appear a single port channel to the third device. We were calling it like a load balancing stuff, ether channel stuff in the previous, like traditional switching. Here it is called as like a virtual port channel, it's called. The third device can be a Cisco Nexus 2000 series fabric extender or a switch server or any other network device. A VPC can provide layer 2 multipathing, which allows you to create redundancy by increasing the bandwidth, enabling multiple parallel paths between the nodes and load balancing traffic where alternate paths are existing. Say for example, this is one other switch and this is another switch. I am connecting only one link. Say for example, I take it as like this is a 1 gig link. So I'm connecting the 1 gig link in the sense the bandwidth is going to be the 1 gig only for it. The people who are coming in from the outside and they're connecting to the backbone switches in the sense, they will be getting the bandwidth of only 1 gig. Instead, if I connect to 4 links, so they will be getting the 4 gig connections. This is nothing but the virtual port channel which we are creating. That is available on the traditional switches also, but in a very much enhanced way, we will be doing it on the Nexus switches also. The VPC provides the following benefits. A single device to use a port channel across two upstream devices, eliminates the spanning tree protocol blocks, provides a loop-free topology, uses all available link bandwidth, provide faster convergence if either link or device failing, provides a link level resiliency, helping to ensure the high availability. These are all the main benefits which we get it when we are creating the virtual port channel on this. We'll see some more VPC concepts. We'll see what are the concepts of the VPC refers to the combined port channel between the VPC peer devices and the downstream device. VPC peer switch. A VPC peer switch is one of the pair of switches that are connected to the special port channel known as the VPC peer link. One device will be selected as a primary device. Another one will be selected as a secondary device. So VPC peer link is a link used to synchronize the states between the VPC peer devices. It carries a control traffic from two VPC switches, also multicast, broadcast data traffic. In some link failure scenarios, it carries a unicast traffic also. VPC domain, we will be creating the domain and we'll be making the primary and secondary to be part of the domain. Includes both VPC peer devices, keep alive link and port channels in the VPC connected to the downstream devices. It is also associated with the configuration mode that you must use assign VPC global parameters. VPC peer keep alive link and the member ports and other things we will be creating. Like we will be creating a SVA. SVA is nothing but an interface VLAN will be creating it. No data synchronization moves over the VPC peer keep alive link. The data traffic will be done through this SVAs only. And member ports are likely will be creating to that for the VPC to work on this. So this is about the VPC concept. VPC is called as a virtual port channel. We will be creating the virtual port channel between the primary and secondary. We'll be creating the domain and there is a keep alive link will be created on this. And apart from that, we'll be creating the interface VLAN for to send the data traffic, because the peer link and other things are used only for the control traffic. So this is how the VPC has been built. You see that this is a, maybe like you can just see that this one is one of the peer switch, and this is a secondary switch, you can call it as. And this is a Ether channel 117.118, 117.118. This is a peer link. We need to connect it like this. And here it is goes to the downstream. And the management has been done through this like this. So here for this to reach this VPC to reach this server or something, we will be giving this multiple port channel availability for the people who are coming from the outside. This is the VPC domain. One domain has been created on this. And this VPC domain, one is a primary switch and another one is a secondary switch. And these two are the leaf switches, which they are extending things, which will be making the availability to this server to connect it. So people are coming out from that, they will be enjoying this connectivity on this one. This is a peer link which is being connected. So switch to switch communication will be happening on this peer links. So this is how the VPC has been built, virtual port channel. Let's go to the next one. Fabric extender. Fabric extender, FEX in short, is companion of Nexus 5000 or Nexus 7000 switch. FEX, unlike a traditional switch, has no capability to store forwarding table or run any control plane protocols. It relies on its parent switch to perform these functions. As the name implies, FEX extends the fabric in the network out towards the edge devices that requires the connectivity. Some other benefits, they are fully managed as part of the parent switch, do not require independent software upgrades. They are capable of leverage virtual port channels and connecting redundant parent switches, and they are cost effective for the equivalent switch. FEX has no local configuration. That's why I said it will be downloading every other configuration, forwarding tables, and which port need to get forwarded, which is belongs to which VLAN and other informations. Everything has been downloaded from the top upstream switch. All port configs like ACL, VLAN, QoS, everything has been coming up from that. On the egress side, FEX has no forwarding looking table which receives the port from the parent. It must be told which port to send it. Like that is nothing but the fabric extender. Let's see the next one. Virtual device context. This is very important. You should be creating a more of VDCs within the same switches. It depends on the hardware availability of that, hardware capability of that, how many VDCs can be created in one single switch. VDC is nothing but like a separate domain which we are creating. And the ports can be assigned to the part of VDC as well. Say for example, VDC1, VDC2, VDC3, VDC4. If I have the 4 line cards, each line card has got a 48 ports of 100 Mbps or 1 gig port in the sense. So 24 ports I can connect it on one VDC. Another 24 port I can connect it on another VDC. That is possible. So that's why it is called as a virtual device context. Virtual devices are created within the physical device. And again, how many VDCs can be created per physical switch? That makes that is actually, we just need to go through documentations to identify that. So Cisco Nexus OS software supports a VDCs which partition a single physical device into multiple logical devices that provide fault isolation, management isolation, address allocation isolation, service differentiation domains, and adaptive resource management. You can manage a VDC instance within the physical device independently. That is possible. Each VDC appears as a unique device to the connected users. They will not understand whether they are connected to the physical switch or they are not logical switch or something. A VDC runs a separate logical entity within the physical device, maintains own unique set of running software processes, has its own configuration, and can be managed by the separate administrators as well. So we will be creating the different level of administrators. Access will be given to that, like operator, root, admin guideline, and we'll just make it out. So accordingly, they can manage that particular VDC on this. VDCs also virtualize the control plane, which includes all software functions that are processed by the CPU on the active supervisor module. The control plane supports the software process for services into the physical device, such as routing information base, that is called as a RIB, and the routing protocols. The control plane itself is different for each and every VDC. That is more important. Next, how the VDCs will be looking like that. So here you can call it as like a VDC extranet, VDC DMZ, VDC production. Like that, we are creating the VLANs. We cannot compare the VLANs with the VDC. For better understanding, I'm just saying the VLANs. So in a switch, we will be creating multiple VLANs. Multiple VLANs in the sense per department wise, we will be creating the VLANs. So those VLAN people will not be understanding the other VLAN people are existing or not, unless and until we are doing the routing between them. Like that, VDCs also can be created. But VDC's purpose and functionality and the potential are completely entirely different and far away, like ahead of the VLAN concept. This is how we'll be creating like, just a small diagram which is made. So the next one we will be seeing about the overlay transport virtualization. Extend the layer 2 applications across the distributed data centers, that is OTB. On the Nexus 7000, industry first technology that is significantly simplifies the extending layer 2 applications across the distributed data centers. We can now deploy data center interconnect, that is called as the DCI, between sites without changing or reconfiguring our existing data center design. What are the features? Scalability extends the layer 2 LANs over any network that supports IP designed to scale across multiple data centers. Simplicity supports transparent deployment over existing network without redesign and requires minimal configuration commands as few of the 4 commands we require. Provides a single touch configuration, to adding the new data centers. Resiliency, providing the existing layer 3 failure boundaries. Providing automated multi-homing, including the built-in loop prevention. Efficiency, optimizes available bandwidth by using the equal cost multipathing, and ECM is called as optimal multicast replications. These are all we will be able to do it with the OTV. OTV need to be performed. Then only you will be understanding the how do you extending the same VLAN context to the another geographically separated data center. Means if I'm sitting in a VLAN 100, the same VLAN 100, like the information I'll be getting it through the without crossing my VLANs as well, because the VLANs will be get extended between the geographical locations. VXLAN, the next one is a VXLAN. VXLAN is designed to provide some same Ethernet layer 2 network services as the VLAN does today, but with a greater extensibility and flexibility. Compared to the VLAN, VXLAN offers the following benefits. Flexible placement of multi-tenant segments throughout the data center. It provides a solution to extend the layer 2 segments over the underlying shared network infrastructure so that the tenant workload can be placed across physical pods in the data center. Higher scalability to address the more layer 2 segments. VLAN uses a 12-bit VLAN ID for layer 2, but here we are having a 4000 that is supporting only 4094 VLANs. It's a 12-bit identifier which can support only 4094, but VXLAN is using the 24-bit and it is supporting the 16 million VXLAN signals. That is more important. 24-bit supports 16 million VLANs. You just say VLANs also. You can just compare it over. Where only 4000 is there, where it is a 16 million is there. You can just see the difference. The better utilization of the available network paths in the underlying infrastructure. VLAN uses the spanning tree protocol for loop prevention, which ends up not using the half of the network links in the network by blocking the redundant paths. In contrast, VXLAN packets are transferred through the underlying network based on the layer 3 header and can take complete advantage of layer 3 routing, equal cost ECMP routing, link aggregation protocol on all available paths. Means we are eliminating the need of the spanning tree to identify the loops and other things, but we'll still be using the loop spanning tree if we require. But VXLAN, when we are using the VXLAN, we are having so many bit of advantages we are getting on this. Let's go to the next slide. How host A and host B is talking through the VXLAN segment to communicate, segment 10 to communicate with each other through the VXLAN tunnel. Here, this is a host A is sitting. This is the host A and this is the host B. The packet travels over here and is reaching here like that. So source MAC and destination MAC, VTEP has been created. That is a tunnel endpoint we call it as. Then there is a routers are connected on this. Definitely we require a router to do the L3 connectivity. Then it will be converted to the, like coming back to the VTEP, and VTEP give the connection to the host B like this. So how the table has been built on this, it has been shown here. You can just go through the documentation. So actually we need to configure the VXLAN to understand everything, so that then only we will be understanding the entire things on this. So Here is a MAC address. See, you see that this is the 10.11.100 and this is the 10.11.101. They are in the same VLAN. You can just say VXLAN VNID, that is the 10. They are in VNID. They are in the same VLAN, like that you can call it as. But their traffic has been traveling through this layer 3 network and they're coming back and reaching there. This MAC address, sorry, this host B will be thinking that this host A is just residing in the same VLAN as me, like that. So this possibility is possible when we are configuring the VXLAN connection. The last one is like a Cisco Fabric Path. Introducing the routing concepts at layer 2, Cisco Fabric Path is an innovation in Cisco Nexus software that brings the stability and scalability of routing to the layer 2. Switched domain does not have to be segmented anymore, providing data center wide workload mobility because traffic is no longer forwarded along with the spanning tree. That bisectional bandwidth of the network is not limited and massive scalability is now possible. So this is how the fabric path and all, we just need to understand all this. With a Cisco Fabric Path, virtual machine mobility is possible. Network paired and unlimited bandwidth is available for east-west traffic. Like that we can do. So this is about that. And we come up to the end of this, like the slides and all. As usual, I told you like there is a small practical I would like to show you. Before that, if anyone has any questions, and people can ask me, I am very much ready to answer your questions on this. You can unmute your mic and you can ask any questions on this about any kind of laboratory scenarios, certifications, about the Nexus configurations and other things, about the data center connections, what sort of job you'll be doing on this. Like any questions you can throw on me, I'm ready to answer that. It's all up to you. Once the question hour has been over, then I'll be going back to the practical scenario. I'll be showing you the, the lab which I created on the Janus 3. I'll show you. Cisco 7000 I installed, and within that I'll be configuring some BGP for that. And I'll be showing that end-to-end pinging is possible through the Cisco Nexus switches on this. So you can ask me any questions. I'm ready to answer that. I see people are there. There are 4 or 5 people are there. They can ask me any questions. Hello. Any questions from anyone? No question at all? So there is a different type of cables are used for the data center switches that we can see in the practicals on this. The cables are there. It's like optics plus cable options, DAC, many other things are there. So that you will be coming to know that when you are visiting a data center, you can see the cable, how they are connected on this one. So there's a small spine switch and leaf switch, we'll call it as spine layer, leaf layer, and server layer like that. Spine switches are mostly 9000 series switches will be used. And the leaf layers also been used 9396 PS, something like that it's been used. So it depends on how we are going to configure it, how big is our network, how big is our data center. Accordingly, we can configure the 9000 series or 7000 series or the 3000 series switches, we can use that. Okay, I guess there is no questions as such from your people. So what I do, I will go back to the JNS 3 to show you somebody's pinging now. What is the kickstart image used in the Nexus? Kickstart image is like the thing. There are many type of things are available on this one. There is a the OS architecture has been slightly different from the normal OS which we are using on the iOS. Traditional iOS we just have only one, but the Kickstart will be giving us some additional functionality for you. Like that is why there's been Linux operating system has been included on this one. We'll be explaining things when you are coming for the sessions or something, because that is a very large thing which I just need to explain. So for the currently the time being, we will go back to the the JNS 3. Let me start the JNS 3. Please tell me you can see my screen. If you can't see my screen, please tell me also. I'm just starting the JNS 3. It may take at least 2 minutes. My virtual machines will be starting on this. JNS 3 VM is starting. Yeah, it's getting ready now. Please wait, it may take at least 2 minutes for us to start the lab and to see them all. VMware is booting. I am using that 16 GB RAM on this PC, and it is an i7 processor, 1 TB hard disk which has been there. I create all the projects on this external hard disk. I used to keep it over there. So it has been ready. So let us start the project now. So project is getting started. Please wait. Yeah, this is like the project which I built on. So this is the EBGP which is going on here. EBGP connection which I made it. This is the AS1 and this one is an AS2, AS3. It is an EBGP connection between the AS1 and AS3, which is connected to through the normal Cisco router. This is a Cisco NX OS V. V means it's a virtual edition. 7.3, the OS which I'm using on this both. This is a normal Cisco which is running on version 15, iOS 15 it is. So this is a PCs which we can get it from the GNS3 platform. It's not a problem. We need to configure this Nexus 1 and the Nexus 2 to configure it for the BGP connections and other things. This peer network has been done it through like an ISP. You can take this router is sitting in an ISP, and this is connected through this ISP connections. You can see this is a switch 1 and switch 2. Let me start the all the routers. It may take near about 3 to 4 minutes. It will take. We need to wait until, because it will be shooting up that CPU also. Now it is a 99%. It is shooting. You can just see that. Yeah. These three are running in the GNS3 virtual machine. In the virtual machine, I allocated around 6 GB for that, and 2, 3, 4 CPUs are given to that. So it will be coming up because whenever the routers are starting on this, it will be taking a lot of time, and it will be shooting up to 100% on this. So you see the 100% has been shooting, and the RAM is 11%. It has been used. My own CPU, it is 83%, and the RAM is used is a 44. Actually, we are keeping the images on the GNS3 virtual machines, GNS3 VM. Here I am keeping that messages. Here I am keeping it on this. And I will be using the instances like that. I'll be creating multiple instances from that one OS. So it's like a virtualization. I'm doing that. We need to wait until all the devices are boot up and they're coming up to online. Then we can see the lab scenario which is created on this one. The EBGP I configured. It's a bit trickier. It's not like the traditional way which we are configuring. Just go for like router BGP and network advertisements and neighbor configurations. It's not that much easy. Here it is like a features need to be activated. Let the routers boot and come up online. Then I will show you the basic commands on the Cisco Nexus platform and what is the difference between the Cisco Nexus and the normal iOS platform which we're running on that. Again, it is going to 97% because all the line cards will be coming up. Every Cisco Nexus has this virtual platform has got the 4 line cards has been there. Everything is a 100 Mbps line card. It's a 48 port which has been there. So if you have more memory, means like 32 GB or 64 GB in our computer, we can manage the 9000 series switches also. And we can do a lot of other practicals as well. It is possible on this one. And I've been training the people for data center networking also. You can even contact me for data center networking, CCNA level or CCNP level. You can talk to me. Other than this data center and other things, I used to conduct for normal CCNA, CCNP, and firewalls, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Fortinet, ASA, and I'll be teaching you on FI load balancers also. So you can talk to me whenever you require for this. Let me start still it is hitting 100%. It should need to go down. Then only we can see that what is actually happening on this. Okay. Because of that Zoom meeting is also been running on the same. Now it is getting reduced. Now it is 89% nowadays. Still it has to go down. Again it's going on. Please wait because so many devices are started, like simultaneously. That's why it is picking up the CPU more. Now it is come to 22%. So it is 9% now. So now I am free to work on this. This will also go down. AMD CPU. This is my PC CPU. This is a GNS3 VM CPU. So let me take the console. So this is an admin. I will logging in. Show module. I can just check it. What all the modules are coming up? Still, those 3 modules are not online. We need to wait. That's why it is hitting the 100% on this. Please wait. And now it is module 3 is powered up. It will come back. It will come back. All the modules need to be coming up. Then only we will be seeing that all the ports are running perfectly, and we can see that. So this is the second one. Cisco switch second. Nexus. Show module command will show you. Yeah. 4 modules are there. One is a supervisory. Second one is Ethernet. Third one is Ethernet. Fourth one is Ethernet. Let me show you the show version command. It's a normal like a Cisco command only. Next OS software, Cisco Nexus. It's a demo version of the network operating system, Nexus operating system. Like, what is the version? Kickstart version and Cisco version. Kickstart image file. This is a titanium, and the system image file is like the same one. It's like the same one. NX OSV chassis. This is a supervisor model, which is having the 3 GB memory. We require to give it the 3 GB. Then only it will be working on this. And the device name I given as a switch to boot flash is 3 GB like that. So show module command. Everyone knows that. Show module. Normally we run this command in the Cisco switches also. Show module, show version, show IP interface brief. This you can see what all the interfaces are up and running here. It will show. So basically it's a L2 switch. We can make it as an L3 switch by saying the no switch port command on this. Show IP interface brief command I can give. So there is a VLAN interface also you configure. If you like to configure any protocols, or if you like to activate any kind of protocols or any other functions, we just need to go for the command called the feature. The feature need to get activated. When you are activating the feature by DHCP, EAGRP, EVMELT, GLBP, HSRP like that. When you go for it, like let me take it as like a DHCP, then it will be taking some time and it will be giving me that 120 days, something like that, it is available for that. Only that much is possible on this, it will say that. So let me activate the DAGRP. So now it's saying that 120 days it is available because license is not installed on this. We can't buy the licenses for this. There are many type of license available in the Cisco Nexus platform. Accordingly, whatever we require for to perform these operations like that, we can buy the license and we can put it on this. This is for the laboratory scenario. We can license it like with the command called license grace period. Grace period. This command we can give it. This will be giving you the 120 days license for you to perform many functionalities. I can just say around 80% of the labs which we can able to see with this license grace period only. Else we may have to go for multiple license copies as well. We can see it in the like Cisco site what all the licensing options are there where we can able to see that. And we can run in the command from anywhere. It is possible. Show IP interface brief. In the Cisco iOS and all, like we need to come out here. We have to come out and we will be writing the command over. Then only the show command will work. Here it is not in that way. Anywhere we can run the command. It's possible. Show version, it will work out. Like show IP interface brief, it will work out. Like so very simple commands like that. So now we can just see show commands. What all the show commands are possible on this? You can just say show banner, show call home, show checkpoint. We can create the checkpoints. Like we can even go back to the configuration. Good known configurations and all, we can go back to that. So we can say, check that command by saying show checkpoint summary can create. There is nothing created, that's why it's not showing anything. Like we can create until 10 checkpoints for that, 10 different configurations on this. We can switch back to the configuration whenever we require. Because if you are doing a configuration that is not working, that is working around 90% of this, but you are doing a different level of configuration which is working 100% in the sense, if you like to compare between the two configurations, that is very much possible by using this checkpoint. These are all not available on the Cisco traditional switches and all this. So we can say show VDC, that is possible. That is only one VDC is possible on the license. We cannot create multiple VDCs on this. If I just say VDC demo, it will say that you have reached the maximum number of allowed VDCs. It will not allow that. We cannot create the virtual device context more than one. In the license, grace period license, we can create only one VDC on this. VPCs and all, we can create that. That is not an issue. We can activate all the protocols on this. AHRP, OSPF, RIP, and BGP, and everything we can configure that. And VPCs, we can see. HSRP, we can see that. OTV, we can see. EXLAN, we can see. Many other functionalities are very much possible on this platform, but limited functionalities like a VDC. If you go to the data center scenario, in the sense you'll be creating multiple VDCs on this. That you can see only through when you are having the proper license installed on this. Show license, when I say it doesn't show anything because there is only the grace period has been running on that. Show software. Let me see if the command is there. Software forwarding. What is that? Statistics. So this is like how much is the forwarding has been happening. How many modules are there? There are 5, 6, 7, 8. They can keep on going. Show module, like that we have this much on this. Show VDC detail. We'll see. This is a VDC. VDC number is 1. VDC name is a switch 1. It is an active. So show VDC like that. We can just see other commands as well, like membership. Membership you can see. VDC membership. VDC 1. In the VDC 1, all the modules ports are numbered. Ethernet 2, Ethernet 3, Ethernet 4. There are 4 line cards we have, 3 line cards we have. All the 3 line cards, like ports are part of this single VDC only. If we create a multiple VDC, in the sense, I can keep the line card 4 in a different VDC 4. I can keep the line card 3 in a VDC 3. I can keep the VDC 2 in a VDC 1. Like that, I can keep on creating on this. So multiple functionalities are there. That's why we need to have the practical scenarios need to be checked on this. So let me show the configuration which I done on BGP. Show run BGP. So I given the configurations because we have the show IP interface brief. 3 networks are there. There is a VLAN I configured 101, and there is a 107.16 I configured, and there is a 10 I configured. So this 10 is going to be the remote access. Sorry, the remote AS number 2. Under the BGP, I'm running the process ID is like, sorry, not the process ID. It's AS number 1, and under that I have activated these 3 network. I'm advertising all these 3 networks, and the neighbor is going to be the 10112. He is a neighbor. I'm a switch 1, so neighbor 2. The switch 2 is a neighbor. Sorry, this guy is a neighbor 2. Okay, and I will just see that all these things, and I will be able to see all this. And when I see that show IP BGP summary, show IP BGP summary, I am able to see that there is a neighborship which has been made. This neighborship is with the Cisco. When I go to the Cisco router, I'll be able to see all the both the nexus are talking to each other. Let me go to the console. Here I'm in the console. It's saying that already the BGP neighbors are up. Show IP BGP summary. You see, both the nexus are become the neighbors for this. Here we can just see all the show IP BGP. You can just see the what are the networks which I am learning. So 172.16.1.0, that is actually coming from the AS1. 170.16.1.0, I'm switch 2. And 170.16.2.0, that is a local network. Correct? And we are making the connectivity between this. So when I go to this PC, this is in a different VLAN and this is in a different network as well. I will be able to ping on this devices as well. Let me go back to the PC. PC, I just need to assign that. Let me go to the PC 1 first. Let me go to the console 170.16.1.2. I need to assign the IPs for this. IP 172.16.1.2. 1.2/24. Gateway will be like 1.1.16.1.1. It is creating the IP, show IP, it's showing the IP. Let me go to the PC2 and I will assign the IP as usual. PC2 will be like IP 172.16.2.2/24. Gateway will be 172.16.2.1. 2.1. Now it will work out. Then let me start the PC3. PC3 IP is like IP 101.1.1.2/2. I4 101.1.1. This is the IP. So now the PC3, which is in the AS1, and it will be talking to this AS3 network via this BGP connections. The packet will be moving towards this. When I am sending the packet, it will go to that switch, and there is a trunking between this switch. VLAN has been getting forwarded. He has got the eBGP connection here. The packet goes there. And he has got a eBGP connection again here. The packet comes over here. Then it is getting forwarded and it will ping this PC2 on this. So we will be able to check this from the from the PC3 to PC1, PC2 connection. Let me go to the PC3 helping the 172.16.2.2. Should be able to ping this. Yeah, now it is pinging. Means our BGP connection is perfectly running on this. Got it. So this is about the BGP connections. How do you configure in the Cisco switches? Cisco Nexus is a lot of differences are there with the normal Catalyst OS switches and all. We need to install it minimum 16 GB. That's what I was saying. Minimum 16 GB required. If you have more than 16 GB, 32 GB, if you are having in your laptop or something, it's well and good, because we can have multiple Cisco Nexus switches. We can create one more switch like that we can create, and we can create the VPC port channels and others, and we can create on this. We can do a lot of practicals on this when we have more memory which has been given on this, because see here it is taking 45%, and it is in the CPU here it is taking the 70% on this. The memory is lesser. Now I have used this 16 GB, and every platform will be taking 3 GB. This one will take a 3 GB. This is 3 GB. This doesn't require much. I can use only 512 MB is enough. But when we are creating one more, like Nexus platform, another 3 GB is required. So 9 GB. So 9 plus, again, I'll have to give the VM, I have to give some other 3 GB or 4 GB or something like that. Then Windows 10 requires something. That is a problem. So you upgrade that, then you will be able to enjoy every other lab which we can create it without spending much money to go for a rack rental or something. But certain things which is not possible without a license, which we will be able to learn it through the practicals on the rack rentals. 1 or 2 days, maybe, like you can just go for that. Rest all the things as well, we can simulate it in the GNS environment itself. Okay, this is my lab scenario which I shown you. And if you have any questions to ask or something, you can ask me. And these are all the commands which we normally do that. Cisco Nexus OS show command you can run. Show background, show encryption, show environment, show module. These are all very much required. You just say show route, show IP routing. So this is showing the normal command like that. Where it is like that. Show IP route BGP. Sorry, BGP can run. So they'll show only the BGP learned route will be showing on this. Like that we can have multiple things. Like IP, IPv4, BGP3, MPBGP3, IP, IPv4. Like that we can see all. And you can see show interface E2/3. You can see that admin down. That is something like admin down. It is showing some other interface. Let me see that. Show interface E2/1. It's a dedicated up. Admin is up, and the 100,000. There's nothing but a 1 GB interface. It has been there. Full D plus 1000 MB has been configured on this one, because our cable doesn't support much. That's, but a real life will be having a multiple. So like we can have multiple things. We can explore many things on the Cisco series, Nexus series switches in the GNS3 itself. I'll do one thing. I will stop this because my CPU maybe too much it is being eating up. Okay, so I come to the end of this, like the session, meeting, whatever it may be. If you have any questions, please ask me, and I will be sending this recording and the PPT slides to the people who are attended, and as well as the people who are joined for the meeting or something like that, whoever has got the message or something. You can give me your email address in the chat screen. I will send you the recording as well as the PPT slides to everyone. Please give me your email address. I will not disturb you. Okay, and I'll be sending you all the things whichever it has been done today on this. Hello, people are there. And you can ask me any questions if you have in your mind. Debu has given. Okay, good. Other people also can give it. I'll send you all. Rathod has given. Anil Rathod has given. Good, nice. Game ready. Okay, nice. So don't hesitate to ask any questions, even if it is a very basic or simple questions about any courses or something. I am very much ready to take the sessions on firewalls, load balancers, Cisco Nexus, Cisco normal switchings, routings, BGPs, MPLS, like every other technology which I'm working on, all the type of firewalls, Palo Alto firewall, Checkpoint firewall, Checkpoint firewall and Fortinet and everything I used to work on. So I will be able to take up the sessions for you. It's not an issue. And as usual, I'll be working on cloud also. If you're looking for any cloud trainings like administrator level, AWS, Microsoft Azure, or a Google Cloud, any cloud training certifications which I make you ready. And I'll be helping you to clear the, like interviews as well as exams also. As and DUMs and other questions and other things are there. I'll share it with you people. Not a problem. So if you don't have any questions on this particular scenario or kind of things, I'll go ahead and close this meeting. Thanks for all whoever is joined. Thanks for all. See you later. Bye next week. Next week I will come up with a new topic. New topic I will be taking. I will take it. Thanks for joining. Bye all. Thank you. Bye.